Dynaphones connected. Initiating broadcast signal in
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ladies, gentlemen, and knights of the Nerd World Order, this is the Nerd World Order broadcast. I am the man that you call Dukes, and to my right, it's all about the...
Booyah, what's up? It's your boy Joe, baby.
And to my other right, coming in at 178 adamantium-filled pounds, coming straight out of Krakoa, Alfonso X-Man Flores.
Oh, come on, I gotta say it. I'll be back.
He just got here, but he will be back, which means we are discussing the one and only Arnold Schwarzenegger. And so we're going to be giving you our top Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, our favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. I'm really excited about this one because Arnold has always been like one of my favorites. For a while, I had a picture of him up on my wall, which as I got older, I realized that was kind of weird because it was in my bedroom. But hey, I was inspired to go to the gym and stuff by Arnold Schwarzenegger. So, gentlemen, pretty excited about this episode today. Overall, what would you say, like, what are your fondest memories? Like, what did you think of Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was the big-time guy? Alfonso.
Yeah, I mean, from day one, seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger, it's just like he was your typical larger than life. He seemed bigger than professional wrestlers that we'd watch. Any heavyweight boxer in the ring. He was just this beast, with this heavy accent, which made him seem more just, I don't know, just like, I don't know. He's just like scary, right? Yeah, from day one, he had my attention.
Yeah, me too. It's that you talk about the accent, and that was just so important because I want to say the first movie where I really recognized him was Terminator. And having that accent really made him come across as being robotic. And he was larger than life. He had muscles like I'd never seen before on the big screen. I really am making this sound homoerotic, but that's not how I mean it at all. He was just like a phenomenal actor to see on the screen. And Joe, I really feel like overall, every time I saw Schwarzenegger, I knew it was going to be a good movie.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed growing up watching Arnold Schwarzenegger because you probably don't remember Alan, like in junior high, like a little Sith kind of like every time I would say the S sounds, it sounded people used to make fun of me. So, when you see Arnold Schwarzenegger with an accent, even though it sounded not a common accent, because I think wasn't he like Greek? Was it Greek? Austrian. It didn't sound like an Australian accent though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so, he had his own little way he talked. So, I gravitated to that. And then, like the dude was just really big. He was he looked the part. Like for every action movie that he was in, he looked the part. Like you knew it was going to be good, except for The Last Action Hero. But I digress.
I'm curious to see if Alfonso's top 3 includes Last Action Hero, but I'm going to start it off by talking about my number 3. This is a movie which didn't do well in the theaters, but it gave me something that Joe talked about in a previous episode, is it brought together the two people who are, in my opinion, just IMO, the greatest action heroes of all time, and that's Escape Plan, which came out in, I believe, 2002. I could be wrong about that. I should have looked it up. 2002, and it starred Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone. They were basically trying to figure out a way to get out of this maximum security prison. It was just an awesome movie. It was goofy. It had great action. You finally saw the two of them together, and it was everything that I hoped for in a movie. So that is my number 3 because it gave me something that I wanted to see for years. Alfonso, did you get a chance to see that movie?
I don't think I've actually ever seen that movie. I totally forgot about it. And when you said Escape Plan, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. No, what's that? And as you start explaining, I'm like, yes, I remember that. I remember being hyped around that movie. Like I was ready to go watch it. Schwarzenegger and Stallone together for the first time. I mean, it was just it was something that was bound to happen. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was just like one of those times in my life where I was a little financially stretched, so I did not go.
It's so interesting because I feel like everything just created this movie being a disappointment. I feel like the age of the bulky action hero had passed and we moved on to like the thinner action heroes. At that time, The Rock wasn't so big. And, you had like Vin Diesel, who wasn't, that huge frame like they had before. So I feel like the movie gore had moved past that. And a great point, Alfonso, is people weren't looking to spend a lot of money on their action movies. They were trying to save money around that time. And I feel like a lot of people after, know, Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone stopped being those big stars as far as action movies go, I really feel like their star had diminished at that point. But I'm curious to find out what your number 3 is, Alfonso.
My number 3 is True Lies, 1994's True Lies. He played Harry Tasker. Harry Tasker. So he was an undercover agent for like 15 years of his life. Jamie Lee Curtis with his wife. He had her convinced that he had some boring humdrum job. Like I think it was like an insurance or something. And he was never really there because he was supposedly always going off to conferences and whatnot. And he provided a nice life for her, but it's like, and then he wasn't too attached, I guess, because when you're living that life, you got to make sure you're not too attached. But he was always distant, so she got to get a little lonely. She started, I'm not sure if she went on Craigslist or something like that, if they had that back then, but or maybe it was like the newspaper, the old thing they had in the back of the newspapers. But she met up with a guy, and this guy had her convinced that he was actually a spy. Wrong person to try to convince that to, and that he needed her help with this and that. And it was Bill Pullman, I believe, played that part. He had the cheesy mustache on the whole time. He was like some cheesy used car salesman. That's what he was. He convinced her of this, and he needed her for this, and promised her a life of action. So she was going to go meet up with him. And Schwarzenegger, his buddy Tom Arnold, Roseanne Barr's ex-husband, played his sidekick. He was like the intel guy, the guy in the chair. He found out about all this, and he like made fun of him. He's like, oh man. So they set it up to where, he was going to go and sit in the hotel room and pretend to be this guy. Oh, after he scared the crap out of the other guy, made him piss himself. It was hilarious. And Jamie Lee Curtis did the most tremendous dance scene, striptease, but it was pretty classy. It was pretty classy. A lot of women have been quoted saying that it was empowering. So, yeah, he ended up, revealing himself to his wife, and he's like took her on a mission, and yeah. So, Dukes, what do you remember of that movie?
I remember being disappointed by that movie, and it's no disrespect to you, your movie choice, Schwarzenegger, or anything like that. But I felt like after having so many like really strong, crazy, over the top action movies, when they came out with this movie and it had more of a comedic element to it, I was just like, bro, just blow stuff up, just lift people over your head, fight an alien, be a robot. I didn't want to see him be like the house husband and have the regular life. I didn't want to see that, so I was disappointed by it. As time went by, I got to appreciate it a little bit more. I thought the Harrier scene on the bridge was really awesome. Even though I was disappointed in the movie, I still found that to be really cool. I believe they recently came out with a True Lies television series, which yeah, it was on, then it was off. So I don't think it lasted very long. But overall, I was disappointed. But there's no disrespect, and I'm curious, Joe. We were watching movies around the same time. What was your take on that?
I think we watched it together, actually, I want to say.
I think we did.
I enjoyed the movie. Like, I thought, dude, they had Tia Carrera. She was fine back in the day. And Jamie Lee Curtis, when she was kind of like almost at the end of her prime, she looked pretty good too. And then rest in peace, Bill Paxton, right? And then you know, what was his name? Arnold. What's his name?
Tom Arnold
Tom
was
Arnold. At
yeah.
that time, you remember it was really big because him and Roseanne had broken up. And
Yeah.
at that time, Tom Arnold was kind of like popular,
Hmm.
like because he was going out with Roseanne Barr.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed the movie. It was pretty good. I enjoyed it a lot better. Like I wanted to watch that movie. Like I didn't want to watch The Escape Plan. That was like past its prime. That was actually Arnold Schwarzenegger before he turned into the old gray hair guy in Escape Plan. But I enjoy True Lies. But I digress again.
One thing about True Lies too, 1994, it took place in 1994. You had the terrorist organization, the Crimson Jihad. Okay, that was their name, the Crimson Jihad, right? 1994. They took all these people hostage or whatever they were doing, and they had a nuclear bomb. They're going to blow some stuff up. You know what they wanted out of this deal? They
What?
wanted American troops to be pulled out of the Persian Gulf. I'm like, man, that kind of almost came to life, right?
I don't know. I'm not even going to pretend that I know like geo international politics or anything like that. I'm like, I don't know. All I know is that movie would not that any movie from the 90s, there are elements that would be totally canceled in today's culture.
Oh, big
You
time.
know, it's like now when you create like a terrorist organization, they have to be multinational, multiracial, and have alliances to absolutely no country that actually exists. So yeah, the Crimson Jihad that would not fly well today. uh, I do have to say one thing. Joe said that Mr. Schwarzenegger and Stallone were past their prime. I will always say this: when I'm 65, 69, and 70, I want to have the physique of a Schwarzenegger or a Stallone. And I will always say that. If they're past their prime is my right now, I'd be like, bruh, I'm taking my shirt off for this podcast. So I think they're just fine, even though they're like, you know, hella old.
Yeah, but to your point, it's just sitting down. They're not moving around at that old age, moving around like Samuel L. Jackson in some freaking secret invasion type movement.
This is true. This is true. It's a little bit different, but hey, I always give those guys props because you look at a lot of actors in Hollywood and like Samuel Jackson, and they kind of just gave up on having that action role or at least being in shape for the action role. So,
Yeah.
I give them the props.
Hey, one thing that Joe did mention, the whole Tia Carrera part, it totally reminded me of something right now. So the thing about Schwarzenegger, on screen he's just ridiculously awesome. He's perfect for on screen. You know, he doesn't talk great. He's not the best actor, but he is well known for all of his one-liners. Man, that guy has so many quotable lines throughout all his movie career, and in this one, it's not like one of his biggest ones, but it was great because Tom Arnold. There was a scene where Schwarzenegger was in this area and he sees Tia Carrera. They're talking. Next thing you know, the tango hits. So he starts the tango with Tia Carrera, the dance tango, not tango. So they start the tango, and Tom Arnold's like, hey, we don't got any time to tango. So he dances with her at the end. He's like, there's always time to tango.
Alfonso,
Yes.
do you look up to Arnold Schwarzenegger as an inspiration for your one-liners?
Oh man, big time, big time. I used to have them all memorized. I had these movies memorized left and right. I'm like, man, how come I don't remember this anymore? But yeah, I love my one-liners. They're not
Yeah,
always great. Sometimes they're really bad.
yeah. I don't remember Tia Carrera from that movie, and based on that, I'm curious to see what Joe's number three is.
My number three is Red Sonja. I remember watching that in the drive-in. It had Bridget Nelson when she was like fine before she aged. She didn't age well like fine wine, of course. And then of course our dude Ernie Reyes, he was dope because he was still young then. Because remember he was in The Last Dragon. What was that TV show with Sidekicks with Buck Rogers?
Yeah, sidekicks.
I think it was Sidekicks. Yeah. So like he was in his prime, because it was like a little kid just kicking adults, even though it's not gonna happen. But it looked pretty cool, dude. And then it was kind of weird because I think we were discussing it like that wasn't even Conan. I remember like watching it going, like you saw the trailer, you're like, oh, that's gonna be Conan. And then when you watch the movie, you're like, hey, this isn't Conan. He's going by something else, but he looks like Conan. But I thought it was dope, dude. That was like what a pre Xena, the Warrior Princess, pretty much.
I absolutely loved Red Sonja. And when you talk about Ernie Reyes, I look at it. I look at Ernie Reyes like I look at Rey Mysterio. It's like there's no way that Rey Mysterio could beat the Big Show or like the Undertaker. But every Monday we would watch him do a flippity do and 619, and he would beat the Undertaker. So I look at Ernie Reyes the same way. But you're right. That movie, first of all, it's like halfway through the movie, you're like, they never called him Conan once. He's not Conan. But you're into the movie. Brigitte Nielsen was looking really awesome in that movie. By the way, Joe and Alfonso apparently hate older people. And the action was great. I liked that Red Sonja was like this female warrior that was like, really exciting. I dug everything about this movie. And Alfonso, I look at it like this was one of those movies. It was one of the first movies that I saw where they didn't have to make the woman into just like the romantic interest.
Yeah, she was definitely, she didn't need to be saved all the time. She was able to hold her own and then some. And I I think the first time I realized this that wasn't Arnold that wasn't Conan in this movie was probably like after my 10th time of watching it, because it's like they're saying something. Oh, there's Conan, right? And, and to me, I just had to suspend disbelief. That was Conan for me, and that's the only way I saw it. This was just another part of his movie where he was not quite the the person up front, but he went on another adventure, and he used a code name.
Do you remember his name?
I don't. I was looking it up earlier.
Lord Collador.
Collador.
I don't remember them calling him that. Like, I don't remember them calling him that. You know what was cool about that too? And like the cancel culture and the woke, these movies about like, Marvel now and Disney. I'm gonna make an all-female cast. I'm gonna change Silver Surfer to a woman, even though they have heroes that are women that they could use instead of a Silver Surfer. But I digress. But what's good about that movie is Bridget Nelson's character. They've done it so well that you believe that she could be, the bootleg Conan. Because ain't no one calling him Lord Collador. But like they had a little thing where they would, I think at the end they fought each other. But you believe, like, man, she could probably beat Conan, and they did it so well. Even with Xena the Warrior Princess, like when she kicked butt, it wasn't forced. It was very believable, and the women in our day were just badasses. Like you didn't have to try to say, hey, this woman's bad, and just what was it, Alan gender bending, like just gender bending for us to accept the woman's role. But I digress, man. We talk about this all the time. But yeah, dude, she was a badass, dude. I remember as a kid, like she was dope. So that's one of my favorite movies too.
Didn't that fight scene? Didn't they like they fought themselves into exhaustion? Like they were swinging those battle swords, falling to their knees, and then they just couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah,
that was
it was dope.
Yeah,
and it was believable too, because because at that time, you remember, because she had just was in Rocky 4. Rocky.
It's 4. You're 4. You're right.
Yeah, dude, I was like, damn, she was dope. Even Sly had to get that, bro. Even Sly said, "Oh, if she dies, she dies."
I really feel like looking at our first three, those are good movies, and I feel like my next one is kind of it's a given. It's like it's going to be on everyone's top 1, top 2. For me, it was a movie where I was like, oh, this is so cool. It combines everything I like. It's like science fiction, it's action, it's got aliens. So of course it's Predator. Like I remember seeing the commercial for Predator and didn't realize there was an alien in the movie. I thought Arnold Schwarzenegger was the person who could turn invisible. and like he was the one jumping through the trees. So for like the first 10 minutes, I was like, what's going on? I don't understand. And then I was like, whoa, I was scared. I'm going to admit it. I was scared in that movie when the predator was first in trees and Bill Duke looked up and he was shaving with like a knife. I was like, this is scary. That movie is just awesome. I absolutely love this movie. And the cool thing, Alfonso, is you're going to pretend you watched this movie, but you never saw any of the predators. So feel free.
I didn't see Predator 2. I didn't see Predator Lost in New York. I didn't see Predator and Dora Go Explorer. I did see the original Predator. I saw Prey as well, and we talked about it in depth. But anyway, this movie,
Alfonso, real fast, Alfonso.
Yes, sir.
Predator 2 was Predator Lost in New York.
Oh,
was he in South Central? Was he in New York or South Central?
Was it Electric Boogaloo?
He was in New York. They were in New York.
Alfonso, see, you didn't even see Predator 2 because you said you never seen Predator Lost in New York, and that was Predator 2. But I digress. Go ahead.
You see, the thing is, I know enough. Like whenever I talk about sports, like, oh, you're watching football, huh? Did they get any home runs yet? I know enough to make the jokes, but I don't know.
Which is most important.
Most important. It's got to be funny. Comedy first. But yeah, I remember watching The Predator and I'm like, man, they killed the Indian guy. Now, Native American Indian, native guy, they killed him. And I was like, oh, dang. He was the only one who was really kind of in tune with nature that would kind of understand something like this. And then it's like, how are you going to stop this thing? Like, there's nothing they can do. And Arnold Schwarzenegger lucked into it. He fell in some mud. And he's like, then he realized like the way they see is through thermal imaging, right? Because they have the technology as military guys. So he's like, oh, man, I'll make sure I'm all cold and everything. So luckily he was able to do that. Luckily he was able to pull this off because otherwise he had got torn up too. He was next on the list. Don't you think so, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, the music was even kind of scary. You know what I mean? And then every time he was looking at infrared, like you knew, like they had that sound. And to your point, Duke, yeah, he was, he was shaving. Like they were all badasses. Mm-hmm. Like you were like, there's no way these guys are gonna lose. And then just to see the Predator chop them down, one by one was pretty dope. I think that's we've done that before. You could check out the pod. We talked about Predators. The first one was good, and then Prey was good. They came out with the second one with Danny Glover, and it was okay. It didn't even come out with a part 3. I think they just called it The Predators. It's like, how do you not pay Arnold Schwarzenegger money to have him come back? I think that would be cool. They never did that. I think that's why the second one, for me, it didn't hit because it didn't have Arnold Schwarzenegger. But yeah, dude, just nothing beats in the jungle. It's like another war movie, and then you got this predator that they can't even kill. And so I remember I enjoyed that movie. It's like one of my favorite movies too. I mean, that was back when Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, we see that Snoop Dogg. He says, "This guy don't miss." In the heat of the battle, he don't miss. At that time, he was just hitting, banger after banger.
Yep. It's funny, as I was looking through the Schwarzenegger movies to figure out which ones I liked, you're right. There was a period where it was just like he was just on fire. He put out 2 movies every year, and they were all really good movies. And then, I hope this isn't on anyone's top list, he came out with Last Action Hero, and it was all downhill from there. Like, if you look at the list, that movie destroyed his career, man.
Yeah. And it made a lot of money too.
Yeah.
But it just got really bad reviews.
Yeah, man. It's pretty interesting because when you think about the cast that was in that movie, like Jesse Ventura, you had Bill Duke, you had the Native American guy, you had the Mexican dude, like even wasn't Maria Conchita Alonso in that too? Like, oh man. Alfonso's like, no,
she was in The Running Man.
Oh, okay.
That's right.
Yeah, you're right.
It was like his ex-wife or something, and he tried to convince her to go on the run with him after he broke out. It was weird because I forgot about some of this movie, and I'm reading up on it. Like he was a cop, wrong. Like he wasn't going to fire into a crowd, so it's like then they blamed him. They put him in jail. So he escaped prison. Yeah, not jail, prison. He escaped prison, went to his wife, and she's like, no, you're a murderer. He's like, I didn't do it. I told you. So he ended up wanting to take her, and then he gets thrown in the game show, and then like for fun later they throw him
Interesting.
Hmm.
Alfonso, what's your number two?
in. It's the Running Man.
What?
I just looked at my list. I'm like, did we talk about the Running Man yet? I was like, wait a minute. Dude, that was an excellent segue. But so that's what happened with the Running Man. Yeah, so wow, that's so surreal. But anyways, yeah, so he refused to fire on the crowd, I guess they were like protesters because of the way this post-dystopian world in the year 2017 was. So we've already passed the Running Man time, so luckily we haven't come down to that. But I guess we have the Survivor and Big Brother, so they're pretty close, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, dude, this movie was pretty sick because he had to go on this game show, and this game show was like, you could tell professional wrestling had a lot to do with it. Richard Dawson was the announcer guy, right? Richard Dawson from Family Feud, who kissed everybody, probably had all kinds of mono or herpes or whatever, but he came out and he was just this game show host, and he was just a punk, man. He was punking Schwarzenegger left and right, talking crap, and come off like he's the big guy with a big smile, and like on TV he was a completely different person. So when he goes out there, he's got to fight against these. Oh, and it was also the time of the American Gladiators, so it was a similar thing. Professional wrestling, American Gladiators. He had to fight. They had Jim Brown. Jim Brown was Fireball, right? These guys were called the Stalkers. They had Jesse Ventura, who was Captain Freedom. But it's funny, at first he was kind of like a retired stalker, and he was doing infomercials for his new workout video, right? And I think they brought him in later. Then you had Erlen Von Dutch, who played Dynamo. And this guy, he was just like this big, bald, bad white guy. You know what I mean? He was, I think he was in Steer Crazy. He only had 2 other roles in 2 other movies. But this guy, he was almost like Vader. Like, remember Vader from wrestling? Kind of like him, or even like Bam Bam Bigelow, just this big guy who was just super imposing. You also had Buzzsaw. Buzzsaw was a guy, he rode a motorcycle. He had these chainsaws hooked up to it. And then you had, I didn't realize he was a Professor Toro Tanaka. He played Sub-Zero. All right. Sub-Zero was this guy it was like a ice hockey ring. He had like on full goalie, gear, and he had like a super sharp hockey blade. But it was that guy who was in, oh my gosh, he's been in so many movies as the bad guy. But more importantly, he was Tanaka in WWF way back in the day. So he was like tag team partners with Mr. Fuji. When Fuji wrestled, he fought with, he had a long-term feud with Peter Maivia. His signature move was a Cobra Clutch, dude. So Tanaka was an awesome wrestler for a long time, and then he went into acting. He did all kinds of roles. He was like the big baddie. And so, he was in The Perfect Weapon with Jeff Speakman. I couldn't find an X-Men connection, but I did find a Kempo connection. So you can have a drink for that.
Wow, there's a lot of thirsty ladies, gentlemen, and knights of the NWO out there, because Alfonso has been really lagging on the X-Men references so far. Hopefully he pulls one out. The interesting thing about Running Man is it's one of the few movies that set up a future that's actually worse than the current, because it's in 2017, and then like normally when you look in 2017, like when you look at a movie that's supposed to occur in the future, you're like, they got it wrong. But this movie, like it's still like, well, in another 30 years that could happen, because to Alfonso's point, like you take a little bit of American Gladiators, a little bit of wrestling, a little bit of all these survival reality shows, and it's like it could go that route, if they keep pushing the envelope. So I did not see that movie in the theaters. I didn't even know that movie existed. I worked in a little video store called Don's Video, and people kept coming in and saying, "Hey, you got that Running Man?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." Right? And then so finally, someone's like, "You never seen Running Man?" And I was like, "Nope." So me claiming to be the hugest Schwarzenegger fan, I took it home and I was like, this is pretty cool. So, I can see why it would be a number two because it's science fiction, it's got good action, and it's got that Arnold Schwarzenegger having the moral code. I know you worked at Arnold, or you worked at Don's Video too, Joe. Did you see The Running Man?
Yeah, I think I rented it as well, but I don't think it from Don's Video. I think my dad, mom had rented it before I worked there.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was a good movie. I The biggest question is how's that dude from Family Feud kiss every girl on that show? I remember as a kid, I'd be like, how does he kiss every girl on the show? From the mom to the daughter, everybody. But he was just like, hey, little darling, welcome Family Feud. And he's just like, you couldn't get away with that now, dude. You
No
couldn't
way.
even get away with that, man.
No.
But but yeah, that movie was dope. I think that was the other, what was cool about it was like that was the first time he said, I'll be back. That he wasn't in Terminator and he was just a different movie that he said,
Mhm.
what was that guy's name? I can't remember his name. He just looked at him before he got launched in there. I'll be back.
Yeah, that's right. It was no Terminator was 84. Running Man
Mhm.
was 87. So Terminator was first.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
So I mean, that was pretty cool though, dude. But yeah, it was pretty fun because like I don't know, I could see because back then, like they were the ideas were pure. Oh, let's just think about this. We'll take all the criminals and we'll have them compete whether they live or they die. And then we'll have past criminals that survive become the stalkers. I think it's stalkers, right?
Mhm.
And then if you could retire, like that's what Jesse Ventura was. He retired, and Arnold Schwarzenegger ran through all of the other ones, and he had to do it. And I remember his uniform couldn't fit or something like that. It was like cheesy. He's like, "I'm not doing this, dude." But yeah, it was pretty cool.
you know what I'm thinking of, Joe, with the reason why you think it's the first time, because this is the first time he repeated "I'll be back."
No, that's
So
what I mean. That's the first time he used it in a
yes,
different movie.
right,
That's not
right, right.
Terminator.
Yeah, so that developed the constant for every
I
movie
mean,
after
to,
that.
to be honest, Terminator is the only one that his one-liners were dope. Anything else was just stupid. To be honest.
Oh, dang.
Shots
You don't
fired.
you do not remember, oh, this tango. Ain't no one used that, bro. The only time, like, I'll be back. What was it? He said, oh, hasta la vista, baby.
I
I'll be
forget.
back. Hasta la vista, baby. Was there
Get to
one
the
more?
chopper.
Get to the
Yeah, get
chopper.
to the
That's what I was
chopper.
thinking of.
Those are the only three. Can't remember
Only
anything
there
else,
was
man.
there was only the one, but there was only those are three.
Those are the only three, dude.
I got you.
No, it's not a Tuma. Like,
It's not the
it's just, I
Dude,
mean,
Joe's saying he doesn't have one-liners, then he's like, and here's another one, and another one.
yeah. But I'm just saying, ain't no one used that, through conversation, you'll say, hey, get back, or I'll be back, or hasta la
Uh,
vista, baby. Through
uh,
conversation. Even get to the chopper. Get to the chopper, like just a dumb little joke if you see a chopper. But other than that, bro, ain't no one saying anything else.
Honestly, I think the one I use the most is "It's not the Tuma."
yeah, sometimes I'll just walk around saying it's not the toma, like for no reason.
Usually when I have a headache or
Yeah, it's
or
not
like
the toma.
I got a bruise or something, and what's wrong? It's not the Tuma.
Stop the cap.
I swear, dude. Ask my wife.
Yeah.
Wait. Let me say it like the kids. On God.
No one says
On
that
God,
anymore.
fam.
Nobody says that anymore.
On God, fam.
I think that was around our time, bro. No one says that anymore.
I don't even know, dude. I don't play Fortnite.
They don't even say it in Fortnite, bro.
Well, speaking of 1984, when the original, best one-liner of all time came out, I have to say, two of Joe's one-liners that he mentioned are "Hasta la vista, baby" and "I'll be back," and that is Terminator 2, which is my numero uno for Schwarzenegger movies. I remember watching that movie over and over and over and over. And there were so many that movie had so many crazy action scenes, things that are ridiculous. And I understand it's an action movie, and it's like they're time traveling, so let's suspend disbelief anyway. But I remember when the T-1000 drove a semi off of a ledge into like the Los Angeles River or the gutter. And at no point did I ever think that couldn't happen. I was just like, this is so cool. And then, he outruns him in a motorcycle. Everything about that movie, like the special effects and just the scenes. They brought back that one doctor who was in the first Terminator. What's her name? Sarah Connor's name is real life.
Linda Hamilton.
Yeah,
Linda Hamilton. Yeah, and Linda Hamilton. She came back not exactly buffed out, but ripped. She came out ripped for that movie, and it fit perfectly because after the first one, she was like, man, end of the world's coming. I got to get ready. And she became like this crazy paramilitary person. The script was good. The acting was what it is. The action was crazy. I was excited. Dude, at the end of Terminator 2, I was like, gimme more. I was like singing Britney Spears song before Britney was like the bomb. I was like, gimme more. And then, yeah, I absolutely love that movie. Joe, I can't remember if I saw that one with you, but what'd you think at the time?
Yeah, before I answer that, I'm going to get to my number 2, which is Total Recall.
Sorry, bro.
So, no worries, dude. You were so hyped up to talk about Terminator 2, which I think is a good movie, but let's not forget Eddie Furlong, I think that's his name, was a big doo-doo ass whiner in his little high-pitched voice. I remember we watched that at SoCal movie theaters at midnight, and we had to hear that pipsqueak voice. Hey, I said don't kill them. And I remember everybody couldn't stand that kid, dude. But I digress. But yeah, cool. Total Recall. Total Recall was dope, dude. It had Sharon Stone, dude. You remember she came off like Basic Instinct, remember? Sharon Stone at the time, she was like super hot. Like, hey, I'm starting to see a pattern. Arnold Schwarzenegger really picks the hot chicks around that time period. But yeah, that was a dope movie because you remember they had that one scene with 3 boobies. I remember as kids we were like, man, someone has 3 boobies. You remember that scene?
Everyone remembers that scene.
Yeah, dude. But it was pretty cool. Like, it was different. Like you painted a dream world that you can escape to. It messed with his brain because he was brainwashed. And then he forgot who he really was. He was really a bad guy, but then he ends up being a good guy. Classic, cliche of, the villain becoming a hero, which is subject for a lot of anime, Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah. I really love Total Recall. The remake with Colin Farrell, not so much.
I liked it. It had like what 2 fine girls, dude. The girl from Underworld. What was her name?
Kate Beckinsale.
And then Jessica Biel.
Okay. So I'm beginning to notice a pattern with Joe. I like this movie, and man, there were some hot chicks in there. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's good too. But yeah, I absolutely love Total Recall. I went back and forth on whether or not that should be in my top 3 because as far as the science fiction movie goes, that movie was it's total epic science fiction. And at some point when the reveals start to come, you're like, is this real? What's going on? Is he really the bad guy? Is he the good guy? Mm-hmm. And you guys remember that scene when the lady takes off, where she like takes off her head and it like opens up? I'm like, wow, what's going on? And then remember
when Arnold.
When he goes outside and he's like in the he's where there's no air pressure and his eyes are bugging out and he's like, dude, special effects in this movie. And then like they have like the taxi, like Uber before Uber was a thing with the robot taxi. Dude, Total Recall was so good. I'll never forget to ask for your number 2 again, dude. It was just an awesome movie. Dude. I absolutely love that movie.
Dude, the special effects was better than DC's mustache on Superman. And that was like I think in the 90s, dude.
Yeah.
And it was cool too because not that many people did stuff with like on Mars. You remember because they went to Mars?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the one where he goes get your astomaz?
Get to Mars. Get your ass to Mars. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ain't no one remember that, bro. Like people are probably listening, going, "He's making that up at this point."
And yet me and Alfonso were like, yeah, I remember get your
Oh, yeah.
astomaz.
Big time. Get to Chopper. Get to the Chopper. Then get your ass to Mars.
Yeah. Alfonso, what do you recall about Total Recall?
Oh, I totally didn't recall that there was a second one made that was starring Colin Farrell and Breaking Bad's Bryan Cranston, but I looked that up real quick. But no, Total Recall, you know, it is definitely one of my favorites. While we were talking about some stuff, I actually jotted it down as an honorable mention just in case one of us didn't bring it up, because I was like, I forgot how much I love this movie. I would have probably put that on my list if I thought about it. But yeah, Total Recall. Yeah, that it's like virtual reality before virtual reality was virtual reality. We're still not quite there, but you know, I don't know if you played any games on that Quest 3, but whew, man, that's nuts. But yeah, that movie special effects blew everything away. I mean, it was like you could tell that we were slowly coming in the future after that movie, because everything was just so spot on. The whole Mars scene, especially where his face was about to blow up. Oh man. And you know, the thing Joe mentioned earlier with the trifecta there, that was so classic. I'm not sure what else I could say about that movie, because apparently I need to go watch it again, because I loved it a lot. It's just all like Van Damme, Stallone, Schwarzenegger, all their movies after a while kind of blend into one big movie for me. It's just like nonstop action, you know. But it is definitely one of my favorites out there. Good call.
I remember thinking, and this shows my naivete at the time, that the three boobed lady was real. And that they just found a woman with three boobs and that it wasn't prosthetics. And I don't think until I saw that on like probably Blu-ray did it occur to me like, oh, that's not real. For a long time, I just thought that was real.
Yeah, I remember as a kid, you were like 3.
And now as an adult, it's even cooler because it's like you think about how all three would work, you know, like
Yeah,
ergonomically. I guess
yeah.
my hands are kind of
Hmm.
yeah.
You
There you
could
go.
technically just go like this. You know,
For the people watching us on YouTube.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Dude, Total Recall, just an amazing movie. But you know what I have as my number one? Terminator 2. Alfonso, did you get to see T2 in the theaters?
I did. Yeah, it's probably about time I started going to movie theaters. No, I've Terminator 2 was, man, that movie had so much, because I mean you're really high off watching the first one, because by then we've watched it on HBO a million times, and you hear T2's coming, and it's like, oh man, you know, where's this going to be? Is it going to be in the now? Is it going to be in the future? What's going to go on? And they had a little bit of each, you know. And you know, the big twist where Schwarzenegger was actually uh, a good guy sent by Kyle Reese from the future to save John Connor. That was super sweet. Um, you know, and the fact that the kid John Connor was actually able to get him to change his mind, or not change his mind, but reprogram him not to kill, and they use silly catchphrases was kind of fun. But I was actually looking through some stuff on TikTok again before this, doing my research. I did some reading, but you know, it gets a little boring, so I started watching TikToks on it. And you know that scene where he's on the Harley and he's got the shot the gun, and he's like, you know, cocking it with one hand while he's riding the Harley. I guess he couldn't wear a glove for that scene, and he kept busting up his fingers while he was doing that. And there was a couple times where he actually hit the kid with the gun, almost knocked him out. So there's that. I mean, that was a lot of fun.
So
Yeah,
apparently
because
TikTok.
it was wasn't it 8 years since the original one?
Yeah, it was a long time.
And so like the hype was real, because now it seems like they do a movie every 2 years if they're gonna do a sequel. You know, sometimes in a year they film them both at the same time. But yeah, I remember the big buildup was like, man, you had to go rewatch back when you had to rewatch movies to get ready. You watch Terminator to watch Terminator 2, and then you realize, man, Terminator 2 was so much better than Terminator.
Right?
Yeah, it was like special effects were better. The movie was cleaner.
Yeah.
It seemed like it had more action, more stunts. It just was pretty good. And then it had Robert, was it Robert Paxton?
Pattinson.
Yeah.
Patterson. He was dope, dude. And like when he would turn in like the Silver Surfer and then go through stuff, dude. The special effects was that James Cameron was dope on that, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
Have you seen this boy?
Yeah.
I did a really cool one where I took that picture of the kid out and I put the NWO logo on that. I gotta find that one again. That was fun.
Your
Yeah, that
parents
was
are
pretty
dead. Your parents are dead.
There you go with another one-liner. Everything about that movie. The interesting thing about the first Terminator, if you look back on it, it's actually a horror movie. And there's a lot of movies when you stop and think about it, they're actually horror movies. But yeah, it's weird because they took a movie that was like, lady being chased by a robot, and they turned it into just this straight up action movie for T2. And like I remember, like right now as you guys are talking, I've got like the soundtrack running through my head with like Guns N' Roses and
Prime Guns
it's
N'
like,
Roses.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. And just everything about that movie was it was next level. And I think for a long time that set the bar and movies didn't even come close.
It was dope because you remember he was riding the bike and it was dope because now you're like, wow, Terminator's riding a bike. And he would take the shotgun and shoot it and then flick it and reload it. Like he would flick it. Dude, that was so dope, dude. And you know what's cool about it too is like the first one he's a bad guy, and then the second one he's a good guy. It was kind of like Hogan and Hulkamania and NWO. Like it got reversed. Like, you're like, whoa, he's a good guy now? And it kind of throws everything off. And there's like a new Terminator. It was really good. I remember it was really good, except for the whining voice. But other than that, it was good.
Yeah, what's really weird yet somewhat topical is that they chose to make a police officer the villain. Yeah, but no one looked at that as like, "Oh, you're maligning police officers." Whereas once again, in today's culture, that would be a completely divisive plot piece to do that. But back then, it made sense. I mean, that was after, I believe that was after Rodney King and LAPD had so many scandals. So it was kind of like it just perfectly fit without anyone pushing back on it.
Yeah.
So as we've heard twice now, T2 is my number one. So I'm really curious as to what Alfonso's number one is going to be.
Well, I myself am a fan of nostalgia. So my number one movie is Terminator, the original, the OG. So this one here starts off in the year 2029. Kyle Reese gets sent back in time to stop a Terminator that's coming to kill Sarah Connor, who will one day mother the child John Connor, who later becomes his boss, I guess, his captain, colonel, whatever, general. So yeah. Oh, and plot twist, he fathers John Connor. So he ends up impregnating her. It was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It was kind of neat. But the Terminator sent back. When you travel in time in these movies, you can't have any clothes, right? I think John Connor beat up a bum and took his clothes. Schwarzenegger came up to three bikers, beat them up, and he killed one, stuck his hand right through this guy's chest. The other guy saw that and he just like starts taking off his clothes. Schwarzenegger's like, "Your clothes, give them to me." Yeah. So then he went into like, he went on a rampage. He went into where he said, "I'll be." Oh, was it at a motel room? No. Where did he end up saying, "I'll be back"? Because I know he went to the motel. He went to the gun store. When he went to the gun store, he's like talking about all different guns. The guy's like, "Oh, you know your stuff." And at first he tried to order a plasma gun. And he's like, "Nope, only what you see on the walls."
Wasn't it the police station? Like he couldn't get in and he goes, "I'll be back."
Right. It was a police station at night. That's right. And he looks around and he's like, "I'll be back." So, but when he's in there, the guy's like, he's like, "Well, I get you all these guns today, but the handguns are going to have there's a 7-day waiting period." And he's like, putting the shotgun shell in the shotgun. "Oh, no, you can't do that." Boom, blows him away. Next thing you know, he's full of guns. So this movie, I mean, I found out that there was a lot of guerrilla type filming of this. James Cameron would call the crew up 3 o'clock in the morning. They're like, "Come on, we're gonna go film here," and everybody had to get up and go because I don't know if it was a budget thing or he was a new director at that time, so he didn't really have much going for him. I'm not sure how much he did before that, but they had to get up and they would go and they would shoot. And then there were times where the cops would even like bust them up. They almost got in trouble when they filmed the very last scene was Sarah, where she's in the Jeep, like driving off into the sunset with the dog. Oh yeah, because dogs can detect Terminators. I mean, Joe, this movie, like, it took me for a wild ride. I mean, top of the line effects for the day it was. It just blew me out of the water. I mean, what'd you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it a lot. I liked Linda Hamilton. She was fine. She wasn't this buff, it seemed like for me. So like I thought she was fine back then. I'm like, damn, Linda Hamilton's pretty fine. If I was a Terminator, I'd be chasing her ass too. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I enjoyed the movie too. And what was that? What was the guy's name? I can't even remember his name because he's been in a few movies. Remember he was in with Nicolas Cage.
Which guy?
What was the name of that movie? With Nicolas Cage. Remember he was in Nicolas Cage in why can't I think of his name? James Bond. Why can't I think of his name?
Pearson?
He passed
No.
away.
Pierce Brosnan.
No,
Timothy
one of the
Dalton,
original
Sean
James Bonds.
Connery.
Sean
Sean
Connery?
Connery. Remember Sean Connery, Nicolas Cage, Alcatraz. Was it Alcatraz?
The Rock.
The Rock. There we go. But the main leader of the military, remember he was just like they're like, hey, throw your guns down. He wouldn't do it. He was in Terminator. What was his name?
Yeah.
Now I'm curious. I can't remember his name. But he was like he's a Sarah Connor's one night stand, I guess.
Dude, remember when Schwarzenegger's looking through the phone book? This is something that wouldn't translate to kids nowadays. You'd have to explain to him. Like, he's like, yellow pages? Nope, white pages. Well, why is he in the white pages? And he pulls out the thing, and he just goes through and he kills every single Sarah Connor. Luckily, she's the last Sarah Connor on the list because when he ends up finding her in a nightclub with her friend and blows everybody away.
Yeah, his name was Michael Biehn. Yeah.
I bet she's one of those character actors. You see him, you know who he is, but you never know the name.
Yeah, I mean, he never blew up. I mean, ultimately, the bigger star was Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Originally, Arnold Schwarzenegger was supposed to be the hero, and he looked over both roles and he said, "This Terminator is more interesting," so he chose the Terminator role. And if you think about it, I mean, physically. And just based on his accent, it was such a phenomenal choice. It probably made his career.
Yeah.
It wasn't a far stretch for him to play somebody robotic.
Yeah, absolutely. So
and then his lines weren't too much at all at the time. You know what I mean? Like he didn't have to talk as much.
Right. So it works out perfectly. I can see how they'd want to make him the hero, but it definitely, worked in his favor in this case. Joe, speaking of heroes, what's your number one?
What made me a fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger was the movie Commando. I love that movie. And at the same time, they had Alyssa Milano, man. I remember I had a crush on her when I was like a little kid. She was so fine from Who's the Boss? And then you're like, well, she's in Commando. I got to watch it, dude. She's like, because you all had your little crushes growing up. And you're like, man, she was my crush growing up. Alyssa Milano, I love you. She looked good. But, I digress. But yeah, Commando was dope, because it was like, his ex-war partner, kidnapped his daughter. And then, he goes to fake his death to go get his daughter back. It was dope. And there's nothing but action, dude. The beach scene was dope. And then he's in camouflage. And then I think I had seen that movie right before Predator.
As you describe the movie, like the plot sounds like a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie where like he fakes his death and then they kidnap someone in his family to, keep him from doing something or make him do something. But here's a question for you, Joe. Commando, get to the chopper? Is that where that one comes from?
Yes. Get to the chopper. That's where it's from. But like he faked his death because they kidnapped his daughter to force him to kill somebody. I can't remember who it was, and they got on a plane, and then he killed one of the henchmen, and then the little henchman got away, so he's chasing him, trying to fake because the little dude knew that he faked his death, or he faked not excuse me, I apologize. He didn't fake his death. He faked that he was gonna go kill someone, so he had like a certain time period where he was gonna be at a certain spot, and so he chased that little dude, and then he shaked him, and then that's when he met up with Ray Don Shang. She was fine too back in the day, dude. Um, and then he, like he kidnaps her, and then they go off and they rescue her daughter, his daughter.
Did Ray Don Chong have more than that movie? Was she in Last Dragon?
No, that was Vanity.
That was Vanity. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Excuse me. Could.
She was in The Color Purple.
Ray Don Chong?
Yep. In the newer Interview with the Vampire.
The one that's on TV?
Yeah.
Ray Don Chong is in the Interview with the Vampire that's on TV?
Yep.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
According to IMDb.
Wow. Look at Alfonso just like instantly checking stats, even when it's not TikTok. Very impressive. Yeah. Commando is definitely one of those movies I had to watch on whatever form of media was available, VHS, Blu-ray, DVD, whatever. And that's another one of those where I was like, wow, this guy's so awesome. Mm-hmm. So I saw it after Terminator 2, after Total Recall, like years later. And it's just a really great and impressive movie.
Yeah, I remember Commando. Yeah, it was a really good movie. It's probably one that I've seen the least, and I don't know why. It just happened at a certain point in my life where, something wasn't readily available to me, and if I was going to watch something, it was going to be a creature comfort like Predator or the other one, Terminator. So, yeah. That movie, I mean, Alyssa Milano is the one thing I remember the most from that movie. I loved her too. I feel you, Joe. I mean, we're about the same age, so it's like, we grew up the same. I know it looks creepy because she's a little kid in this movie, but we were those same little kids at that time.
I was the same age. We're both 50.
Exactly.
So we were the same age. She was 10. I was 10.
See,
Don't get it twisted.
Creepy. Right.
Ain't no R. Kelly business up in here.
I'm just saying, if somebody looked at this and be like, well, she's a little kid. Yeah, but we were little kids at that time. We were the same age, so it was no issue at all. Yep. And now look at her. Whew. Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing at all.
Wow. I'm surprised you guys didn't say, oh, but now she looks old. Because
she's still young.
You two. Well, I believe we have rounded the corner and we have all covered our number one, which is pretty cool. Like I said, I was a Schwarzenegger fan from way back, had his picture prominently displayed in my bedroom. It was just really cool. He inspired me in so many ways. Tried to get pumped up like him, but I wouldn't take the steroids. So, yeah.
You got to commit.
You got to commit. If you're not going to use steroids, so why bother?
Yeah.
So this concludes this episode of the Nerd World Order broadcast. So until next time, ladies, gentlemen, and knights of the Nerd World Order, I am NWO.
We are NWO.
Nerds Redefined. Booyah!